The hosts of bracketology are experts in nothing. They claim no advanced knowledge or profound insights. Instead, they are just three judgmental idiots who really like to bloviate their own opinions whenever given the chance. Take what they have to say with a grain of salt, or not at all. You'll probably be better off that way.
All right, guys, got a question for you. So you walk into a store and you are presented with 10 magical donuts. One of the 10 will kill you. The other 9 give you different super gifts. How many of the donuts are you eating?
What kind of super gifts? Hold on.
All right.
Let's.
So one is a rich donut. You are given, like, you eat the donut and you're automatically given a winning lottery ticket that has the jackpot lockdown of $2 billion.
Okay.
That's
one.
Yep. Another donut is the job donut. You can choose any job up to $200,000 a year. They would hire you and you would be fantastic at that job.
Okay.
The soulmate donut. Meet your true soulmate on this earth at your desired time, place, storyline, however you want it to go, it happens.
Already did that.
Or relationship donut. Your current relationship will succeed without any future hiccups. It becomes the most perfect relationship.
Already got that.
You have the superpower donut. It gives you huge advantages in life. So think about, like,
it doesn't just give me superpowers?
No, it gives you one specific superpower. And think about it like Domino's superpower. You're super lucky in everything that you attempt. Most things come naturally to you. You have more clarity, and illnesses are less likely to affect you. And if they do get you, they are short-lived.
Okay.
Then you get
What are we at, 4 or 5?
So are you just making these up on your own, or?
Yeah.
No, he's reading them.
Oh.
You also have the power donut. Small advantages in life. You have the best long-term and short-term memory. You don't lose any motor skills the older you become. So think about it as like limitless, like that kind of impact on your brain.
Okay. And so are they random? Like, we don't get to choose what donuts we eat?
Correct. You do not know which donuts you were going to eat until you eat them. One of them will kill you.
Are any of the donuts like immune to death? Can I cheat the system that way?
It would seem like if you somehow managed to eat the lucky donut, then the rest of the donuts kind of wouldn't be a problem, right? Like, you eat the lucky donut, and then you got a solid 8 more donuts or 9 more donuts in front of you that you could probably be okay eating,
Now, the immediate answer is all the donuts. I will eat 10 donuts. But
you're gonna have an
awesome
couple hours.
I've tried eating a dozen donuts in one sitting before. It is more difficult than it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe with that attitude.
I think I got through 7 before I almost died.
Only 3 more to go.
So I'm going to go with 7. I'm going to eat 7 donuts.
You're going to eat 7 donuts.
Yeah. That's how many I've eaten before. Might as well just try my luck at that.
Because
here's the thing.
Once you get up to 3 or 4 donuts, your likelihood of getting the death donut increases exponentially.
Yeah, sure. But so does the likelihood of getting all the other things. That math doesn't actually work, but realistically, look, if I'm going to die eating a donut, it could be worse. Also, why do I have to walk into a grocery store for this?
I didn't say grocery store.
You said store.
Yeah, where are we getting these magic donuts from?
You walk into a store, and then all of a sudden this guy appears and offers you 10 magical donuts.
What store? Am I in Abercrombie and Fitch? Am I at fucking Cinnabon?
It would
what
be.
A fool.
It's
been a while since you've been in a mall, huh?
It's a Wetzel's Pretzels.
Then I'm going there for pretzels. I don't want any donuts.
No, you walk into any store that you would normally walk into, and this guy just appears.
I'm not buying donuts from anyone in a Dick's Sporting Goods.
Excuse me, sir. You want some donuts?
Seriously,
One of them will
he just
kill
walks
you.
up to you in the middle of a Foot Locker and opens up his trench coat. You want some donuts?
I promise only one of them will kill you immediately. The other ones might do other things.
Yeah, but
who knows?
one donut
Take
is
my donut.
Yeah, he's not wearing any clothes, and one donut is around his penis.
Well, that's definitely the donut. That's definitely the death donut, then, isn't it? And if that's the case, if that's the visual, I'm eating 9 out of 10 donuts.
Going straight for the dick donut.
I'm eating 9 out of 10.
Is it glazed?
Oh,
It will be.
by the time you're done. Depends, are you using your hands or not? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bracketology, the podcast that definitively defines all things tournament bracket style. I am the number one co-host of all co-hosts, Scott Grubb.
And we definitively decide all the best things, not define them. But my name is Matt, and I'm the second co-host.
And my name is Dan, and I guess I'm the third co-host.
Look, I'm number one, and we can definitively define things all we want. Today, we are going to begin by defining the best Bob. I'm super excited for this bracket, guys.
Same.
Yeah, this bracket is it's fucking ridiculous.
It's a little on the weird side.
It is so good though. So we got let's give a little bit of layout for the folks listening at home, watching at home, etc. I was at work, right? So Matt, second co-host, at work, and I'm talking to my friends, right? And I'm talking about the brackets, and I'm coming up with ideas, and one of the guys at my work says, best Bob. Immediately, everybody stops talking, looks at them, and says, that's it. And then we all clapped, high-fived, and celebrated our differences.
You had to have been there, really, honestly.
Yeah, but truly, best Bob comes from somebody who listens to the podcast and thinks that it would be a great idea, and we could not agree more. So we've come up with the best Bob.
So, well, we've come up with 32 Bobs,
Yeah,
and now we're going to
determine
the best Bob.
Yeah, the bracket of the best Bob.
When he came to us with this idea of the best Bob, we started thinking about it and realized how great this bracket's going to be. I'm so excited.
Well, when he first came to us, we were like, fuck you, loser, get your smelly feet away from us. And then we took a second to actually think about it. And now here we are, 32 Bobs later.
Quick disclaimer, my feet do not smell.
No, I was talking about the person who...
Oh, his feet might smell,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to tell him that.
Anyway.
Guys, I'm ready to bloviate about Bobs.
All right. So we've got 32. We've divided them into 4 loosely organized categories. It was kind of tough to categorize 32 Bobs. We have characters, personalities, actors, and other. Gentlemen, where do you feel like we start today?
Look, the most important one, in my opinion, is other. So let's start with characters.
Others is definitely a weird one. So I don't know if that's where we should begin.
For other. Yeah, let's start with characters.
Okay.
All right. Let's get into it.
So just to kind of go over the matchups real quick, just because we have 32 different ones and it's important for us to name them. Also, I'm going to back up. These rankings were determined by nothing.
Totally randomized. There is no form of favoritism here. We took all of them and randomized them.
Now, that has to be said because the rankings still exist. So our number one seed in the characters, Sideshowed Bob, is going up against SpongeBob, which is the number 8 seed, which, in my humble opinion, is the rightful place for SpongeBob to be.
Oh,
then we've got Bob Pinciotti from That 70s Show going up against Bob, the Builder. We're going to say Bob 7,000 times.
We need a Bob counter on this one for sure.
Oh, fuck. That's a lot of work for me. Then we've got Silent Bob in the third seed versus Bob Belcher, which is from Bob's Burgers. Then we've got Bob Kelso from Scrubs against Bob the Minion, Banana.
I like it.
So that is our characters bracket. So let's just start at the top with Sideshow Bob versus SpongeBob.
I mean, it kind of sounds like you already have a vote on this one from the sounds of it.
Look, as a 90s child, right, I grew up with Bobs. One of those Bobs was not SpongeBob. SpongeBob sucks. I hate his voice. I hate everything about him.
Wow.
I don't like SpongeBob at all. I hate his stupid pineapple house because pineapples are delicious and they don't belong under the ocean. I did, however, grow up fearing and, may I say, being inspired by Sideshow Bob.
Speak on that. Inspired by?
He's got cool hair.
Wait, the three spiked hair that sometimes had a bone in it?
Look, Sideshow Bob
the bone was Sideshow Mel.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sideshow Bob is a tale as old as time, right? It is a someone who wants to do good, someone who wants to give to their community and gets spurned at every opportunity. So what does he do? Just like every villain, he kills people or tries to.
So what I'm hearing is that as the second co-host, you identify with the sidekick. Is that what I'm hearing?
Look, say what you want, but ain't nobody following anybody but Kmart Chris Evans into the hole. You know what I mean?
I don't know what any of that means. I also don't know when it was decided you were the number one co-host. I must have not been here for that vote.
I mean,
Dan is the co-host.
Let me go back
at the bottom of the podium.
Let me just say
with
here,
the champagne.
If you guys go back and listen to previous recordings, at no point prior to this have I designated myself as first or number one. However, on many occasions, you guys have both indicated that you are second or third. If you're second and third, and there's no number, then that by default that puts me there. Just saying. But you guys granted those designations, not me.
Hey.
That's why I always said I'm the final co-host. Anyway, back to so getting back into it, Matt. I kind of agree with you. SpongeBob was a little after my time, so I did not. It was after my time. If you want to alienate
his vote that much more, go ahead.
But Sideshow Bob definitely was right there, peak time. Like, he had to follow around Krusty the Clown, which had to have been humiliating because Krusty is not the most talented actor or clown.
Nor is he the most generous boss.
Yeah,
you know?
He's just an unpleasant human being. And Sideshow Bob just had to kind of deal with it and be the butt of his jokes and everything like this. But did you all know that Sideshow Bob was actually voiced by Kelsey Grammer?
Of course we knew that.
Okay.
I mean...
I'm going to be honest with you, Dan. I didn't know that, but that's mainly because I knew who Sideshow Bob was long before I ever knew who the fuck Frasier was. You know what I mean?
Well, I refer to him as Beast from the X-Men, but
sure.
I like how he's that guy who fell off that stage that one time.
Let's turn to the resident young person on the call. Scott, do you want to explain who the fuck SpongeBob is?
I mean, no, because here's the thing. You guys are putting you're putting a lot of personal feeling into this. And I think you need to remember that we are a subjective scientific podcast. Okay. And I'm not saying that that Sideshow Bob isn't great, and that he didn't even talk about his whole purpose, his rivalry with Bart Simpson. I mean, it is a thing.
Kind of did. He says he tries to kill people.
He doesn't try to kill people. He tries to kill Bart Simpson
because Bart Simpson got him arrested.
Yeah, Bart's an asshole.
That rivalry is a thing of legend. I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if we're talking about cultural impact, only one of the two of these have performed during a halftime show of the Super Bowl.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's true. It's true. Only one of them has actually anchored a broadcast of the Super Bowl from beginning to end. I mean, I've never in my life seen a single piece of Sideshow Bob merch. SpongeBob was everywhere. SpongeBob still is everywhere. SpongeBob's legacy has lasted significantly longer than Sideshow Bob's ever hoped to last.
That's a blatant fucking lie,
He-
first of all, because The Simpsons have been on for 70
No,
years.
I'm not talking about The Simpsons. You
Yeah, and
cannot
Sideshow Bob's
equate.
been in
No,
all of
you
that.
cannot equate Sideshow Bob's legacy with that of all of The Simpsons. Do you know how many fucking characters have been in The Simpsons? That's like saying that every single one of them has the same cultural impact as Homer Simpson. They are not one and the same. The Simpsons legacy is something of legend, sure, but Sideshow Bob is merely a footnote in that at best, an asterisk on a page. SpongeBob is much, much more significant than that.
There have been thousands of guests on The Simpsons. You're 100% correct.
There's also
there are only so many that are so recurring and have such a theme throughout the entirety of the show, and Sideshow Bob is one of them.
Every single one of them that's recurring has a theme throughout the show. Barney has a recurring theme. Professor Frink has a recurring theme. Comic Book Guy has a recurring theme. Like, they're very characterized versions of, you know, what they're supposed to represent. Sideshow Bob's a little bit of a stranger version to that, but still. And I mean, again, the cultural impact SpongeBob has had. I mean, he's been an icon for the LGBTQ community. He's
Look, you can't. I've drawn a line at the beginning of this bracket.
You draw a lot of lines that don't make any sense.
SpongeBob will go down. My vote is for Sideshow.
You're, from the very beginning of this bracket, about to nullify the credibility for everything else that we do with it.
That is irrelevant.
Okay.
Who do you vote for, Scott?
It's definitely SpongeBob.
All right, Dan, I want you to break a heart right here. I want you to hold mine and Scott's hearts in your hands, your young, soft, supple hands.
Yeah.
Don't call him young like you're trying to suck up and kiss ass now.
And I want you to squeeze one of those hearts until it pops, and I hope that it's spongy.
All right. Well, that was incredibly graphic. So, look, SpongeBob, to me, is the better Bob. It hits that cultural sweet spot. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sideshow Bob is the better
Oh, my
Bob.
God. You are, again, talk about negating the credibility. You can't even fucking read the bracket, let alone actually...
It had nothing to do with...
You verbalize your own real thoughts. Oh, my God.
You should let me finish. Sideshow Bob is the best Bob to me because he hit that sweet spot of when I was growing up in the nostalgic feel. SpongeBob came after me. That said, Scott, you are correct. You steaming pile of doo-doo. SpongeBob has had more of a cultural impact. SpongeBob is much larger in recognition, in IP value. SpongeBob in this scenario is, unfortunately, much to my chagrin, getting my vote. I crushed a heart. It was kind of spongy. Sorry, Matt.
The sponge prevails, though. That's right.
For now.
That's right.
For now. I have a vendetta against this fucking sponge. Who's next?
This makes no sense. All right. Up next, we have Bob Pinnicotti, a.k.a.
Pinciotti.
I like
Pinnicotti is a type of food.
Anyway, a.k.a. the next door neighbor from that 70s show, versus Bob the Builder.
So far, 3 of our 4 Bobs and characters either have spongy hair or are a sponge. because Bob had a fro.
I couldn't tell
He
you what
did.
Bob the Builder's hair looks like. It's always under a hat because he
Yeah, Bob the
practices
Builder.
safety.
That's why I said 3 of 4.
Oh, okay.
Look,
He might have a spongy hair.
as an OSHA certified person, I appreciate Bob the Builder for what he does.
Yeah.
The sacrifice that he puts out every day for Mrs. Builder or Mr. Builder, whoever Bob's partner is. Bob Pinciotti, going back to it a little bit, kind of a part of my youth, right? My growing up. Like, who didn't want a neighbor like Bob Pinciotti and his daughter?
His daughter, go ahead.
Donna's hot. I don't
Okay.
know what to tell you. I thought my eyebrow raise did that enough.
I mean, yeah, he's an affable, lovable next door neighbor, right? Idealized on a sitcom based on the 70s from the early 2000s, late 90s.
1999, I believe, was season 1.
Again,
or 98.
affable neighbors idolized on TV. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about Bob the Builder. I mean, I know obviously like of and where it's from, but I don't think I've ever watched any Bob the Builder before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Bob the Builder came well after our time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
that makes it a little bit
like super well after Dan's time.
That makes it a little bit difficult for me to honestly vote on this because I have absolutely no clue who Bob the Builder is. When we were discussing Bob's to put in this bracket, I had to Google Bob the Builder because I had no idea.
Wait, is this true, or are you bullshitting us right now?
No, this is absolutely true. No clue who Bob the Builder was or is.
You didn't even know,
Bob
like, just
the
through cultural,
Builder.
like, can we build it?
Bob the Builder.
Yes,
Nope.
we can. You didn't have nothing, no cultural zeitgeist.
No, I don't spend as much time around children as clearly you two do. But yeah, no clue. But what I do know is that Bob Pinciani, not only was Donna super attractive, but Midge, his wife, who was played by the late Tanya Roberts, who was also a Bond lady, super hot.
I mean, I feel, see, this is where I kind of lean back to your previous arguments before. Like, I think Bob the Builder has a larger place in the cultural zeitgeist because, I mean, Bob was just the next door neighbor on that 70s show. He was probably in, 15% of all the episodes of that show that were ever produced. He wasn't in all.
Yeah, he was in more than that, dude.
I mean, even still, he wasn't by any means a primary character. He wasn't even really a secondary character. He was tertiary at best. But as an overweight, affable white guy with a wife who's way hotter than my league, I identify with him. I understand where
he is one of, 7 actors who were in every single episode.
He was in every episode for real?
200 episodes.
Yeah.
At least credited.
I'm going to say he was credited in them all. I don't think he was actually in them.
Yeah, but to be credited in every episode of a TV show like that,
you have to have an appearance.
No, you don't have to have an appearance to be credited.
No, but you don't have to be. But that generally means that you're a top billed actor, like on the call sheet. You're at the top of the call sheet. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to
no, I mean
it's
fine. I'd like to know how many he actually like appeared in.
Let's break here for a second. Let's go watch the whole series, and then we'll come back. We'll catch up.
Sure, that'll only take me probably 12 years or so to get through all of it.
And we're back. We don't know. We lost count. We got distracted when Topher Grace left. So who knows? All right. Where were we at? 12 years ago? Bob Pinciotti versus Bob the Builder. I think you're right. I think Bob the Builder has more cultural impact, especially when you look at, pun intended, building the youth of tomorrow. Bob has been pretty instrumental in that for a while.
Yeah, but so here's the thing. Like, I've never actually watched an episode of SpongeBob. I knew who SpongeBob was, right? Because of that cultural impact and how big it is. I didn't know who Bob the Builder was, so I don't think that impact is even a fraction as big as SpongeBob's. So that makes this a little easier for me to vote for the card I know versus the one I don't, because the one I don't, I really didn't know.
Okay, who's your vote then?
Oh, Bob Pinciotti.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Bob the Builder here.
I just, as much as I loved that 70s show, and I absolutely did, it's really hard. It's really hard for me to understand unless you have a court order restricting you from knowing anything about children from the ages of 2 to 7. You're an outlier, it feels like, Dan.
Yeah.
And so Bob the Builder has got to move on. I'm like,
Yeah.
Bob the Builder just is he's too instrumental in, again, the youths.
To claim to have literally never heard "Can we build it? Yes, we can." Like, I just don't believe that.
Believe what you want.
I think
will, and I do.
I think you've heard it before, and you're just too old to remember. If we're being honest. Speaking of old things, what's next, Dan?
Next, we have Silent Bob versus Bob Belcher.
You see how far he had to lean in to be able to read that?
I did. Well, it's very small.
Whoa.
Hey, man. We do what we can, all right?
Okay, so Silent Bob, for those that are uninitiated, is Kevin Smith's character in pretty much every movie he makes. So anything that's in the Jay and Silent Bob universe, Clerks,
Mallrats,
Silent Bob Strike Back, Mallrats, Dogma.
Clerks 2.
Yeah.
One of the best movies ever made, Dogma. Silent Bob is Kevin Smith's character, and he is Silent Bob. He's named that for a reason, because he's silent for the majority of the movie until he has something profound to say.
He always has one profound line, and it's great.
One profound line. Versus Bob Belcher, which is the name of Bob from Bob's Burgers, which I found out when I Googled Bob from Bob's Burgers.
You did not realize Belcher was the last name prior to?
I've never watched an episode of Bob's Burgers.
Man.
So it's difficult for me to know anything about it.
Dan, have you watched Bob's Burgers?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
As he pulls up YouTube to watch an episode. What I will say, yes. What I will say is that I know who Bob is. I know of his burgers. I also know of his family, his children, and like it's a huge cosplay. A lot of people dress up as Bob's Burgers.
It's a very common Halloween costume. Yeah.
Very common Halloween costume, especially the girl with the pink hat.
Luis.
Sure. So I do know of Bob Belcher,
but
it's Silent Bob, man.
Yeah, man.
Like, it's you can't. I cannot, in good standing, say anything negative about Silent Bob, the character. I can say very few negative things about Kevin Smith, the person who created Silent Bob and then plays Silent Bob. Generally speaking, Silent Bob is honestly, pretty good role model.
I mean, now hold on a second. You have to take into account that Silent Bob's hetero life mate is Jay.
Now, Jay is the only one who's ever said that out loud.
$15, little man. Put that shit in my hand.
And if that money doesn't show, then you owe me, oh. That jungle love.
Oh.
So
we're gonna get DMR.
So I mean, again, thinking of Jay, right, and the energy that he brings, and the maybe some of the more difficult, controversial opinions that he carries, and perhaps the way that he speaks to and treats women in some of the different theatrical portrayals. If Silent Bob is that closely associated with him, I mean, you would
Kevin
stand
Smith.
No, what? No, with Jay.
Oh, okay.
I got too complicated. I introduced two people to the conversation. It got too complicated.
Yeah.
if Silent Bob is so closely associated with Jay, it stands to reason that Silent Bob shares some of those viewpoints with Jay, right? I mean,
or Silent Bob sees the good in Jay and tries to steer him on the right path.
it's kind of hard to steer anybody when you don't fucking say anything.
You don't have to say
he
anything.
does keep points, and
yeah,
you know,
he's very expressive throughout all of his movies. Like, you usually know what's going on in the mind of Silent Bob by his facial expressions and actions, and I think that adds to the character. And he has, on several occasions, stopped Jay from doing stupid shit.
Also, if there's one thing that all three of us can get behind, it's being against bestiality, which Jay and Silent Bob totally are.
What? I'm pretty sure in one of the movies they go to a donkey show. I'm pretty sure they help organize a donkey show.
Yeah, but I don't think they know what a donkey show actually is.
I'm 100% convinced that they absolutely, definitely know what a donkey show is.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. They're in a van with the three women, very beautiful women, and the guy Stifler.
Sean William
Scott. Oh, yeah.
Scott. It took me a second, but I got it.
Yeah.
And hey, if you were a sheep, would you fuck another sheep? And then he says yes. And then they're like, hey, this guy said he'd fuck a sheep. And they throw him out of the van. That's against bestiality right there. Anyway.
I think that's more just against Sean William Scott, if we're being honest.
I mean, both are legitimate.
I think my vote has to go towards Silent Bob.
We didn't even talk about Bob Belcher.
Yeah, that's
true.
Man,
this here is a family man who's out there and an entrepreneur struggling in America, working day after day, sweating over a hot grill, trying to build his own business, trying to compete with the Italian restaurant across the street, trying to raise his family right and provide for them. I mean, and then you look at every Thanksgiving episode of that show. He puts his heart and soul into trying to deliver his family the best Thanksgiving that he can possibly provide. And it goes to shit every time. And then you look at the Halloween episodes where he tries to support his kids while they have the best Halloween trick-or-treating experience that they possibly can. And it goes to shit every time. And then the Christmas episodes every year where Linda, his wife, is so invested in the holiday season and she wants it to be magical and a miracle, and it goes to shit every time. But he's there through all of it. He is the rock that helps to hold that family together.
Are we not going to mention his voice, like H. John Benjamin? Also the voice of Archer?
And the voice of Arby's? And the voice of Comedy Central for a little while, I think.
Now, hold on, because as cisgendered white men, we should probably acknowledge the importance of a heterosexual life mate. You know, like everything that you just said, Silent Bob is that for Jay. In fact, has brought him back from the edge a few times.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but
normalize male friendships. That's all I'm saying.
Is Silent Bob? Look, Bob has male friendships. He's got Teddy. Teddy's at his restaurant every day. That's true. There's some real loyalty there.
That sounds like a patron more than it does.
No, they're much more beyond that. Their relationship has grown so far beyond that. So far beyond that.
You've never sounded so profound. Look, you've explained parts of Bob and who he is as a human cartoon. Do you have anything else to add? Or Dan, do you want to chime in at any point while Scott and I wax poetic about Bob's?
I mean, look, Scott, I get what you're saying about Bob Belcher. I do really like that show. And without Bob, the show doesn't happen, right? He is the glue.
What does it become, Linda's Burgers?
Well, I mean, it's much more than that. He's the glue that really holds all the characters together. And I do like, how hard he does try for his family. But it's fucking Silent Bob, dude. Like, come on. We were talking about cultural impact. I don't think you get much more impactful to the culture than what Kevin Smith has done. And a large chunk of what he did, at least on screen, is Silent Bob.
Sure, but Bob has burgers. I rest my case.
Sure. And
my blood pressure
Bob
says I
has-
can't eat burgers that much anymore.
All right, Scott, where's your vote going?
So are you two officially voted?
Oh, I don't. I have. I don't think Dan's officially thrown his vote into the ring.
I have not.
What's your vote, Duva?
Silent Bob.
Yeah, it was mine. Mine was too. I mean, I just felt like somebody needed to stand up for the hardworking middle-class white man in America.
It's important.
And Bob Belcher needed a voice. He belonged on the list, and we need to talk about why. But Silent Bob belongs further on the list. So
true.
Yeah. All right. That moves us into our last matchup for the characters division in round 1. Bob Kelso versus Bob the Mignon. Now, Bob Kelso from Scrubs, older doctor guy, right?
mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, he runs that hospital.
Yeah.
Sure. Bob the Minion from the Minions and from Despicable Me, short yellow guy, right?
Yes. Overalls.
Yeah. Overall, goggle.
Famously.
Goggles. Goggle? Is
Banana.
it one eyes or two
No,
eyes?
he's got 2 eyes.
Is he 2 eyes? Bob's 2 eyes.
According to a
Shorter,
Google
right?
search.
He's the shorter.
Yes,
of
he's
the
the
two
shorter
eye
one
minions,
with
the
2
main
eyes.
ones.
Yes.
Okay. Who are the other ones?
Kevin and Steve?
Stewart.
I knew it was an S.
Gotcha.
Stewart.
All right. But Bob. And Bob is honestly like the leader of those minions, you know? Like he kind of is. Kevin
Groot
tries to
is
be,
the
but
leader of the minions.
Gru is the leader of all the minions. Bob's the leader of his friend group.
Gru-
Similar to how I'm the
Hold on.
leader of this podcast.
Hold on. First off, we got to go back because you weren't listening. He said Groot. Groot is a tree. Gru is the
Gru.
leader of the minions. Very different things.
It's true.
Wow.
One is
And
voiced by Vin Diesel.
It's important that I point that out as the leader of this podcast, who fucking
can't
listens
do- I
with,
just
who
did
listens when their co-hosts are talking.
Sorry, you just interrupted the fuck out of me to say that? I listened to you.
Yes, and you will yield because I am the leader.
Bob Kelso, important part of Scrubs. I think that's important. Kind of sends things off the rails more frequently than not, if I remember correctly.
Occasionally, yeah. I think that his role in that show was very instrumental in its in to some degree in its simplicity, in that just his presence caused the other characters to act differently, the same way that anyone
a boss does in real life.
Yeah, and a boss does in real life. He was a very good foil for the silliness that was going on within that show.
But first off, I loved that show Scrubs, except the last season. After it, was done and then came back for that terrible last season. Bob Kelso was an instrumental part of that dynamic because he was the necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
And he had fantastic character arc development when it got into the fact that he had to be a dick to make sure that everything ran appropriately in that hospital, because without his sometimes frugality and directiveness, then they would have run out of money, and then nobody would have had a job, and nobody would have saved anything. But there was a great dynamic between him and Dr. Cox, and that back and forth between the head doctor and the leader of the hospital.
But you're right. I absolutely remember the episode of that show that really kind of highlighted Dr. Kelso, and it showed the kind of devil's advocate side of it for him, of
Mm-hmm.
he was it was kind of the episode I feel like where JD kind of had the realization of the role that Kelso played, and it showed Kelso making all the decisions and behaving the way that he normally would, but all of a sudden there was a deeper understanding, so you saw it from a different perspective and a different angle. But I mean, I think that's what's going to put Kelso. He blends in with the rest of that show in the fact that I feel like Scrubs had great character development for so many of its characters. I mean, the the growth of JD is inherent within that show. You know that's going to happen. He's the main character. It basically has to. But the way that you saw like Dr. Cox develop in that program, and you see Kelso develop in the program, like it's something you don't see very often in sitcoms of that nature, you know?
Even Yanitor.
Mm-hmm. True. Whereas Bob the Minion likes banana.
He does like banana.
Realistically, like, I get that we had to put Bob the Minion on here, but if you slapped a picture up of 100 minions on the wall right now, I wouldn't be able to pick out Bob from the group.
But I mean, do you really need to be able to? Here's the other thing, though.
Kinda.
If you put up a picture of Bob the Minion in Times Square, and next to it you put a picture of Bob Kelso next to Times Square, which one are more people going to take selfies with it behind them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Bob the Minion has had floats in Macy's Day Parade. You know, like he's had such an impact on children's lives everywhere that kids will request a visit from Bob the Minion as their Make-A-Wish. And I mean this nicely to Bob Kelso, but he doesn't have that.
And this might be the lack of. I've seen Despicable Me 1 and 2. I have not seen any of the other movies from that cinematic universe. But in my recollection of those movies, no specific minion does anything of note. It's always a group effort. And I
think it's important that the minions are represented, and Bob becomes the elected official of the minions.
Okay. Well, I'm not super high
from Scott.
I mean, it's kind of how it works. Someone asked for a volunteer, and all the other minions step backwards. So, the thing is, I think we're talking about Best Bob as a singular, right? And so, from that viewpoint, that perspective, right, the minions as a whole, I'm kind of with Dan. The minions as a whole, as a concept or whatever,
is more culturally impactful.
Yeah, it's a greater thing, right? And it's internet memes, and it's merchandising, and it's a very, very valuable brand. And it's not just the movies. There's cartoons, and there's shorts, and there's, all kinds of stuff with the minions. But Bob as a single entity, I mean, he blends in with the other two, and amongst the crowd, he is he just looks like another banana, Whereas Kelso, I think that story arc, that growth and that development, that the multi-dimensional complexity of a character that Kelso brings is it's stronger than banana. It's sweet like banana. So I'm going to vote Kelso since it got quiet and uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, I'm going to throw my vote in the ring. I don't think he looks like a banana. I think he looks like a Tic Tac. Bob the Minion.
Oh, Bob the Minion.
What flavor Tic Tac?
Banana.
Good. That's okay. That's the right answer.
I'm pretty sure that was an actual merch that you could buy. It was a banana flavored Tic Tac that was Minions.
If not, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Dan?
So, I mean, SpongeBob and Bob the Builder, right, had bigger cultural impacts than the other Bobs that I might have been more fond of, but it was their sole impact. SpongeBob is the main character of that show. Bob the Builder is the main character of that show. Bob the Minion is not the main character of any of those movies, right? It's Gru, it's the daughters, it's everything else. Bob is just part of a larger crowd. And for some reason, the marketing people named one of those little shits and put him out in front of everybody. And that's how we know him. It's not because of anything of note. Bob Kelso, on the other hand, was a definite hitter in a very successful franchise that ran 9 seasons, but we only talk about 8. My vote absolutely goes to Bob Kelso.
All right, that means that Bob Kelso moves on and will face Silent Bob in the next round that we will come forth to know in the future the name of.
All right. So now that we have, what was that, characters out of the way,
Characters are gone. Characters done.
We will jump to the southeast quadrant of our bracket to the other category. You put a question mark there. I had to read it. This one is interesting because all right, let's just go through the matchup. So, again, randomized order for these. Up first, we have Bob Evans, the restaurant, not the person, not the restaurateur, but the actual restaurant, versus politician Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
After that, we have, this one's going to be the most interesting, I feel like, to Bob, the motion, as in like bobbing up and down, as we all do it instinctively, versus Bob Euchre. That's so weird. We have Bob Cat versus Bob Kane. I think I'm going to need a refresher on who Bob Kane is.
I'll give you a refresher.
And then lastly, we have Bob the haircut versus the bobsled. So
I'm so excited for this. This is so stupid.
This is the dumbest.
It's so good though. Look, there's only one thing on this in this division that I don't know.
Okay, well let's
start there with Bob Evans versus Bob Dole.
Wait, you don't know Bob Evans?
No.
Wait, hold on. You've never eaten at a Bob Evans?
Where are there Bob Evanses?
I've never seen a Bob Evans in my life that I could tell you about.
Is there a Bob Evans restaurant within 500 miles of me right now?
Is there a Bob Evans restaurant?
No.
Is it just Canadian? I thought it was a Canadian restaurant. I don't know.
No, but it's in the Tennessee, Missouri. There's one right on the Missouri-Kansas border.
Sure. Hate Kansas. No offense to those Kansas sites.
Fuck all. Give full offense to all 12 of them. All 12 people that live in Kansas.
Never been in Missouri. No, I've never eaten at a Bob Evans restaurant, Dan.
Wow. Okay.
So what kind of restaurant is it? Let's start there.
Breakfast? It's like breakfast food. And I mean, they have all kinds of other stuff, but Is
it like a Cracker Barrel?
Not quite, because it doesn't have the cool store in front.
It's not like a Cracker Barrel though.
It's a good way to describe it.
It's not a
I do love Cracker Barrel, not for the hyper Christian store in the front. Although when I was a kid, I loved those candy canes. But for their biscuits and gravy, love it. For their pancakes, love it. They got fried apples. Who the fuck doesn't want fried apples?
Yeah.
I almost bought, side note, I almost bought apple pie egg rolls from Sam's Club this weekend. Oh, man. And the only reason I didn't is because I had a haircut 2 hours later and I wasn't planning on going home. So
you're forgetting the chicken and dumplings.
Oh, do like some chicken and dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
Do love me some chicken and dumplings.
So Bob Evans definitely has that like quote unquote farmhouse feel to it. Like it's got the big breakfast. It's got like what you would consider like the quote unquote homemade dinners, like turkey on stuffing and mashed potatoes with gravy and steak tips and fish fry.
Country style.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly. That's their whole aesthetic, I would say, which is probably why it's more, located where it is,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not mad at it though. Like, let's be real. I do love all of that food. But Bob Dole.
Uh-huh.
Bob Dole, famous politician. Bob Dole.
Yeah, I think just being able to say his name, Bob Dole, is like that's a point for him. That's
That is
toward
100% a point for him.
yeah, it might
Now,
be one of few.
I don't know much about Bob Dole's actual policies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, and he passed away just a couple years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's also true.
Poor Bob Dole. So served in both chambers of the United States Congress, the U.S. House of Representatives in the 60s, and the United States Senate from 69 until 1996. So,
He also served with distinction in World War II.
oh, well, that's nice.
Something to know.
But man, just the name itself, like not even just Bob Dole, like just being able to say his name, I think is such a gift that he's given to America.
Just what Futurama was able to do with his character, I think, too. Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the heads, isn't he?
Uh-huh.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, but I do, man, now I want fried apples.
Focus.
Okay.
I mean, he had a long, decorated career.
I don't know if you would really call it decorated because he lost a lot.
I mean, that's a decoration.
He was the Senate Majority Leader.
He was, but he also, Gerald Ford chose him as his running mate, vice president, and lost to Jimmy Carter. He ran for president, but dropped out of the race in the early 80s. It might have been 1980. And then he ran again in the later 80s, but he was defeated by George H.W. Bush when he won the presidency.
Wait, so he was the Democratic nominee, though? And
No,
lost to
Republican.
HW?
Republican.
Oh, Republican.
Yeah, he was a Republican his whole tenure.
That makes sense if he lost to Carter. Math sometimes. I don't know Bob Dole from a hole in the ground, to be honest with you. But if the likelihood of me going to a Bob Evans is very, very low.
I mean, the likelihood of you meeting Bob Dole is very, very low.
Unless you're a necromancer.
Which one's greater likelihood, though?
Yeah, only one of them is actually possible.
Still around?
Yeah.
I mean,
but Bob Evans also has things that you can buy
so
outside. What can you buy of Bob Dole's?
I bet you can find a shirt with his picture on it.
Yeah, 100%.
His likeness
Dan
is licensed
Googling
somewhere.
Bob Dole merchandise now. I can't wait for his Amazon to...
Of the two of them, only Bob Evans would be willing to put gravy on anything.
Now, I think that's where I need to step in for a moment and say...
If you tell me you don't like gravy, I swear to God I'm ending this podcast and our friendship.
Yeah, same. And that goes for all forms of gravy. White gravy, brown gravy.
Hold on. I don't dislike all gravy.
Oh, God.
I love white country gravy.
Okay.
Bob has that in buckets.
I hate
literally
brown gravy. Brown gravy is disgusting. It can go away. And realistically, my gravy only belongs on biscuits. Outside of that, I don't want gravy.
Have you never had chicken fried steak with gravy on top?
No, I have had it. I don't like it.
Or gravy with chicken tenders.
No.
You've never dipped chicken tenders in white gravy?
You can use.
Oh my gosh, man! I just don't know why I keep you in my life sometimes. The negativity that you bring me on a near daily basis with your bad opinions,
dude. And breakfast gravy, sausage gravy on like breakfast potatoes with some scrambled eggs, some peppers, some onions.
I mean, I'll eat it, but like realistically, if someone's like, "Hey, do you want some gravy?" I'm like, "Better be some fucking biscuits with them." Like that's the best thing. But outside of that, I don't need gravy.
we got off on a tangent here. We're talking about Bob's. Bob Evans versus Bob Dole. And just to let you know, Matt, since you'll never travel to a Bob Evans, apparently, you can buy Bob Evans goods at the grocery store right now. They have microwavable macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, all kinds of things. You just got to look for the Bob Evans. They have, pretty sure they have different types of sausages.
I would like to point out this is not an ad.
No, they have a double crust apple pie that would make Jason Biggs blush. I mean, it looks delicious.
I don't need the extra crust, though. Give me extra apples.
Oh, my God. And, all right, we need to vote on this one because we're way off track.
I'm going to start this vote off, and my vote goes to Bob Evans. Bob Evans wins every time in the food category. Bob Dole lost a lot.
Every time in the food category?
Yeah.
Bob Evans versus Cracker Barrel, it wins? Every time in the food category?
All right. Well, Bob Evans wins a lot in the food category. Bob Dole lost a lot. I appreciate his World War II service. But yeah. Bob Evans for me.
Matt?
I'm really hungry now.
I know. I ate like, oh my gosh, that was almost 9 hours ago.
I know,
and now I'm looking at these delicious looking dinners on the Bob Evans website.
See, I haven't even pulled up the website.
www.bobevans.com.
This is not an ad.
Unsponsored.
The bracketeers cannot be bought.
No, we can. No, hold on now. Whoa.
We can
listen. Squarespace, Bombas,
Maker's Mark.
I'm talking to brands that are known to advertise on podcasts right now. We can absolutely be bought. I have personally actually used Squarespace. By all means, I'll shill for you. Anyway.
All right. I'm gonna go with the food. As much as I love Bob Dole, I think I'm gonna have to go with food.
Okay. Bob Evans. Bob Evans wins for sure.
I'm not gonna ever go there, but if it is similar to Cracker Barrel, I do like Cracker Barrel's food.
I think
their politics, not so much, but their food, 100%.
I think if you travel somewhere with a Bob Evans, you might need to consider it.
Yeah, you should put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
I will take that into consideration. Moving on.
Bob Euchre versus the motion of bobbing up and down.
This is such a weird category.
Does that include bobbing for apples?
No.
Yes.
Are we looping that in here?
Ooh, do love me some apples.
But it's specifically bobbing for apples, and I think it has to be included because it is the name. Like bobbing for apples, and when a buoy bobs.
I want somebody to make a GIF of all of us bobbing like that. Okay. Now, if you don't know who Bob Euchre is a famous baseball announcer. Mm-hmm. He was featured in multiple motion pictures. The main one that comes to mind, Major League. Mm-hmm. And just the voice of baseball for 20 something years.
Yeah, probably more than that, right?
Like he is, when I think of like baseball announcers, that's who I think of.
You're going just to announcer, which is fair because I do think that's what he's most. But he was a player. He was a catcher.
He also played.
Yeah,
he played for the Brewers for a long time.
Sure,
not a long time. 5 years.
I don't know.
He played.
Look, you want to talk about cultural impact? Every single human being that has ever lived has bobbed at one point in their life, let alone all of the animals that have bobbed. Meerkats, they bob.
They do. You know what I mean? It's an important part of their communication and safety.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. If I learned anything from Meerkat Manor.
The motion of bobbing is huge. If we go back in time in human history and we look at all of the fishermen that have existed, some of them used bobbers.
I mean, it is a common part of the fishing. Bob Euchre, though, was the special ring announcer at WrestleMania 3 for Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. I'm just saying we got to throw that out there, too.
Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Andre the Giant once choked out Bob Uecker. Well,
Yeah.
quote unquote, again, choked out.
Oh yeah.
How the fuck do you quantify bobbing the motion
I just did it
against
literally
anything?
2 minutes ago.
Well, yeah, but like, you know, in terms of like, I don't know. This is insane.
I mean, when we're thinking about the best bobs, right? Quantity versus quality versus other cue words. Bob the motion has the quantity against any of these things. You know what I mean? Like that just is. There are too many things that bob. Honestly, you go up into space, you're in the International Space Station, you're probably bobbing with zero gravity. You know what I mean?
You can't know. You can't bob. There's a vital part of the bob motion is coming back down. You have no gravity to bring you back down. You're not bobbing in space.
You could be.
You're floating in space.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
Look,
On a quick physics lesson.
The fact remains, there's been a lot of bobbing in our history.
Now, if you're on
humans.
a
boat?
I lost it. What is it called?
A ship.
When you jump off of a tall thing with the
Diving.
bungee jumping. When you're bungee jumping, you're bobbing up and down.
Yeah.
You're bouncing. I don't think you can equate that as a bob.
I
But-
think you can absolutely say you're bobbing when you're on the end of a bungee cord.
Now I do want to just
This
say,
is the most ridiculous conversation we have ever had.
Bob Uecker. You can't. Look, I think Bob Euchre's the only baseball Bob on here, as far as I'm aware. And that goes
Have you
a long
watched
way.
baseball?
So, just-
Boring.
Poco.
Unless I have 9 hot dogs and 9 beers. I mean,
Yeah, but Bob Uecker like spans decades.
the motion of bobbing spans human history.
I'm trying.
You literally said that
Yeah.
yourself, Matt.
I'm trying to argue with myself.
I'm ready
Look,
to put this to a vote,
I think there's
because
one other thing we have to take into consideration here. We have to be honest with who we are, right? We have
Yeah.
to be honest with ourselves.
Sure,
We are 3 heterosexual men, right?
that's true. Mostly.
Of these 2 things, Bob Uecker and the motion of bobbing up and down, only one of them makes boobies bounce. And I think that's all we need to really take into consideration.
Oh, and now, can you say with 100% certainty that Bob Uecker didn't make boobies bounce?
You know what? That's fair. I'm sure in his day,
yeah,
as a player in the MLB, Bob
As
Uecker.
an 80-year-old, he made boobies bounce. That man was a good-looking dude.
Yeah, I mean, look, he and his first wife had 4 children, so there's at least 4 instances in which he probably
bounced the boob.
He's still alive.
What are you talking about?
Bob Uecker is 90.
Uh-huh. Are you just learning this?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay, I'm checking because I thought I might have said something that made it sound like he was dead. I was like, wait, did I misspeak?
No, I assumed he was dead like Bob Dole.
Yeah, no, he's still going at the moment.
Good, go for you. You know what? Fuck it. Bob Uecker. That's my vote. Good for him. Make those boobies bounce, Bob.
I don't know if he's doing it anymore, man. I mean,
he wants to, though.
Sure. Can't blame him, I guess.
Will versus skill, my man.
Dan, how are you feeling about this?
Like, this is the most ridiculous conversation we have ever had. All right, if you were just going off of like cultural impact, there's nothing on this list that could beat the motion of bobbing because of everything that it does. When you're in a good mood and you're listening to music, you're bobbing your head, right? You're at a show and you're not, a skilled dancer, you're going to be sitting there bobbing your head. There are other, versions of that motion that are sexual in nature that are also enjoyable.
Demonstrate those for us.
Nope, not going to happen.
Hold on, he's got to go get his banana.
Hold on. Let me get my Bob the Minion.
There's nothing that's going to beat that. It is ridiculous that we are having this conversation. That being said, Bob Uecker is an icon. Like, he was the voice of baseball for decades. He was a player in baseball. He's been in WrestleMania. Like, to get it out of the list, I am voting against Bob the Motion and for Bob Uecker.
All right. Well, I guess that makes my vote irrelevant.
But who were you going to vote for?
Totally Bob the Motion. I mean, don't get me wrong. Bob Uecker is certainly being corporeal and tangible and one might say human, I think certainly carries a certain level of gravitas that Bob the Motion doesn't. But Bob the Motion is quite literally timeless.
Yeah.
So that would have been my vote. But,
it's really hard to argue with that. And here's the thing. When we put this list together, Bob the Motion was the thing I was most excited for on this list. Like, realistically. However, Bob Uecker. Also, callback, not a lizard. Full-on human. 100% human.
Good to know. Up next, Bobcat, versus...
Is it like every
hold on.
Bobcat? Okay.
Hold on, because I have the same question. I'm with you. That's why I paused, and I was like, hold on, let me just go ahead and say the next name that I don't... Bob Kane versus Bob Kane. So yes, Dan, go ahead with your question now.
Is it every Bobcat that ever existed? Is it like all of Bobcats? Or is it just any generic Bobcat?
Well, it'd be beyond that. Are we talking Bobcat the animal? Or are we talking Bobcat like the brand of off-road ATV vehicle? Or are we lumping the two together as both being Bobcats?
Yeah, so here's my thought. All right. And as the leader of this podcast, my thought is the most important here. Bobcat includes the species of animal and the tractor vehicle things.
If we're going off that, are we taking into account anything that is based off of Bobcat? Because we just did mascots, and there were at least 2 Bobcats.
There was one Bobcat. Actually, it was a lynx, first of all.
We just thought it was a Bobcat.
At first. However, no, not anything that is inspired by Bobcats. The actual animal or the actual brand of machinery.
But to be clear,
the brand of machinery's name inspired by the animal?
Yeah, but it's
I don't understand your logic.
Bobcat. Now,
because it was inspired by a Bobcat. Like, that company did not come before the species of Bobcats.
If there are any other companies named Bobcat, they're in the conversation as well.
But it is important to note that Bobcat Goldthwait is not in the conversation because he appears somewhere else in the bracket.
Elsewhere, yeah. So then, let's talk about Bob Kane. Now, Bob Kane, for the listeners and Scott, is the creator of what may be arguably the most famous superhero of all time. Batman.
Yeah, close enough.
Bob Kane created Batman. Batman really started what is comic book to live action, right? In a lot of ways. Yeah, there was some Superman stuff, but fucking Adam West's Batman is a direct representation of what Bob Kane initially designed.
Yeah, I do recall it now.
Dan's making faces.
Yeah, I disagree with a lot of what you just said, because there were Superman radio series.
It's not TV.
There was Superman.
Radio.
George Reeves was in a Superman TV show far before the Batman series with Adam West. No, not potentially. Absolutely.
Hold on. Shut the fuck up. However, the 60s Batman TV show is what has inspired so many movies, other superheroes to be made. Like, Adam West's Batman is Batman for a lot of people. Like that just is. And again, that's a direct representation of what Bob Kane had written down.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, when you think about no. What I'm saying is that how closely that representation is doesn't really matter, because you're not talking about how his specific representation was duplicated and then used in other things. I mean, again, you look at like Spider-Man of today, there's very many different iterations of that. You look at Superman of today, there's a few different iterations, but they're all pretty much the same. You're looking at the core overall concept of Batman, that character, and the ripple effect that it's had. And I do think from that standpoint, when you think about that argument, maybe Batman does have a bit more of a reach, simply because, and not just simply because of Batman himself, but the villains as well. I mean, everyone thinks of Superman, they think of Lex Luthor, and maybe you get Brainiac, maybe you get Doomsday, but that's about it. You think of those two, but when you think of Batman, you've got Joker, you've got Riddler, you've got Penguin, you've got Scarecrow. His repertoire of villains goes much further, and then that has then translated to, I mean, look at Joker, and now you got Joker, whatever the fuck, Part 2 coming up here soon. I mean, it's grown beyond just the character that he created. It's huge.
And all of that is thanks to Bob Kane.
Batman definitely has the best rogues gallery out of any body in DC. And a large part of that.
What was the name of that company again?
DC.
What does that stand for?
Detective Comics.
And where did that come from?
Bob Kane. Well, Bob Kane wrote Batman, or designed Batman
as the detective, who then they based the entire company's brand on. However, after I've gone to bat for Bob Kane a little bit too much,
gone to bat.
Bobcats are cool.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Bobcats are cool as fuck. I would love to have a Bobcat.
Well, yeah, same.
In my experience, cats are assholes, and this is just a bigger, stronger, meaner version of that.
Sure, but they're cats, and I love cats, and bobcats are cool.
I like how you said, my point was cats are assholes, and your point was yes, but they're cats.
Yeah.
Great. A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. Yes, but they're assholes. We're just going to go in a circle.
Sure.
To be fair, though, bobcats rarely ever actually attack humans.
In fact, they're huge pest control for the entire country. Like, they take care of a lot of, the random fucking rodents and stuff that run around out in the plains. And I don't know if any of this is true. I'm just saying it.
I can tell you, like, I don't know what you all imagine a bobcat's size is, but typically, like, males on the smaller size are about 18 pounds, give or take.
Perfect cuddling.
But on the larger size, they can get up into the 30s. So that's about the typical range of weight for a bobcat.
18 pounds to double its size. Okay. I mean, look, bobcats have one of the coolest, like, aesthetics in terms of cats. Like, when you look at a bobcat, you know it's a bobcat, right? Like, they have whole breeds of cats that are bred to look like bobcats. I'm not for breeding, by the way, in any way. But bobcats are cool, man.
I mean, yeah. You also have to take into account, though, have you seen the Bobcat ZS 4000 line? Those zero-turn stand-on motors, man. I mean, 30... What?
This is the most ridiculous.
What?
I don't understand why we are just adding in this one specific company that's named after the Bobcats.
Dude, the ZS 4052SK with the AirFX cutting system, like, you can't beat the trim that you're going to get with that.
All right, let's get to the vote. Realistically, as much as I love cats and I love bobcats,
yeah,
Bob Kane. Period. Bob Kane.
Yeah, I mean, the ZS405 2SK does come in at 900.
Shut the fuck up.
Dude, it's 991 pounds. Like, that's a hefty piece of equipment to try and have to haul around. I do think that's a point against it.
Look, I'm used to hefty pieces of equipment to haul around, but you, it might be intimidating.
Yeah, no. I'm used to a much smaller piece of equipment than what Bobcat offers. Like a pen and a pencil, like Bob Kane.
Is that who you're voting for, Scott? Bob Kane?
To be fair, though, the frame is welded 7-gauge steel.
I'm gonna fucking kick you from the meeting.
Go ahead, Dan. Who do you vote for?
Yeah, look, I love animals. You know, I love animals, and bobcats are adorable. But since I can't legally domesticate one and keep one, I'm going to have to vote with one of the, if you were to build a Mount Rushmore of influential comic book artists and creators, Bob Kane's on it, because he created one of the most influential, world-renowned characters of all time. Bob Kane.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but that blade speed is 18,586 feet a minute. I gotta go. I gotta vote Bobcat.
All right, moving on to our last matchup for the day, for the episode.
This is the weirdest episode we've ever done.
The number 2 seed, Bob, the haircut, versus a bobsled.
Oof.
Let's open up the bidding.
I mean, we got to be honest here, right?
Yeah.
The Bob haircut...
It's timeless. Wait,
no, it's reached a time, right? It's reached its time. Because it can be done. There are certain... I'm not going to lie, I Googled the term Bob haircut, and a picture of Sydney Sweeney popped up, and it's... I mean, you know, she can do it. That's fine. But it's also the Karen. I mean, it's the Karen haircut.
That's what I was thinking. Like, anytime I think of a Bob, I think of some angry woman yelling to see a manager.
Yeah, it's real hard to argue. And here at Bracketology, we do not condone Karen behavior. So,
no, I mean it's not all that. Like, you know, there are a lot of instances. I mean, really, all it is it's a shorter haircut off the shoulders on a female, right? And so that encompasses a lot. And I mean, there are a lot of people that rock that look.
All you got to do is spike the back, and it becomes a pixie bob. You know.
I didn't know that, but I do feel like it's become so socially equated with needing to speak to a manager that it's hard to separate the two. You know.
Yeah. Now,
Whereas
bobsled, you know, Jamaican bobsled team from Cool Runnings got me interested in bobsledding.
That's fair.
And as you both know, I am now a professional bobsledder in my dreams.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have to elaborate on that. Now, though, when you think of a bobsled, do you only think of
Jamaica,
like that Jamaica, of that like Olympic, very phallic shaped device, or is there like a kid's toy equivalent of like did you at ever point consider like the sled you had as a kid a bobsled? Did you ever call it that?
No. No, almost always I thought of the penis sleds.
Okay.
I mean, and the truth is that like that movie I grew up with, truly, Cool Runnings is a great movie. I want to step that back just a little bit. I remember that being a very, very funny movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, it did get me interested in bobsleds. Like it did when I would watch the Winter Olympics, I'd watch the bobsledding because not only was it, oh, hey, this is what is in that movie, it's also incredibly amazing what those people can do and the danger that they put themselves in. Like multiple people have died bobsledding. Like that just is. Very few people have died with a haircut.
I think it's important to note, though, also, bobsled is a verb. It can be a verb, like to bobsled.
Bobsledding.
To throw yourself down a steep ice-covered mountain. That also qualifies here. It's not just the device, but also the action, which is pretty badass. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily want to do it. It looks, quite frankly, kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
But then again, so are Karens. But in a different way.
At least bobsleds will be fun for a little bit.
And bobsledding became an Olympic event for the first time in 1924. So it has been around for 100 years.
I love that
as an Olympic sport.
I love that we talk out of our ass, Scott, and then Dan goes and Googles something.
Just completely off the rail. I was totally waiting for a joke about how Karens can also be fun for a short period of time. And nope, he was like, but bobsledding was put in the Olympics. And I have no idea.
It's the most ridiculous division of a bracket we've ever come up with. Dan is trying to keep it so much on the rails.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
I'm trying to keep the bobsled going straight, and it's not because you two fucks just...
Squirrel!
Bobsled. I got to vote right out the gate. Bobsleds are cooler than Bob the haircuts.
Given the choice between riding two of them, you'd pick bobsled.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well, only one of them is going to be disappointed and yell to speak to your manager after you're done. So,
yeah, and my manager doesn't come for things like that.
I want to speak to whoever's responsible for this disaster. Oh
God,
Dan, how about you? How do you feel in this?
I have given up, but my vote goes to bobsled.
Yeah, I mean it has to, right? I mean it's. Sure, haircut, whatever. I mean, this one was kind of the gimme. Of our round here.
At any point in time, like during the Friends run, Rachel had a lot of iconic haircuts.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were very similar to Bob's.
I would disagree with that.
Okay.
Cool. Case closed.
Yep.
So bobsled moves on. Look, if you have a bob as your haircut, there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, live your life, but let others live theirs. I'm trying to give a good, friendly message here, and Dan comes in and just says, "Fuck your haircut. Have a bobsled instead."
Mm-hmm.
Bobsleds move on, and that takes us to the end of the first half of the first round of the most ridiculous, most ridiculous fucking shit we've done on this show so far. What do we got next week? Next
week, we will see personalities take on actors. And I know it sounds like there's probably some overlap there.
There is.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it may be a little bit. But anyway, we're gonna keep going through. Did we come up with a name for our 32 Bobs?
No. The 32?
That's how many are here, right? 8. There's 32 in the first round.
Is there normally a name for the first round?
I don't know that we've really ever done it before.
I don't know that.
But I'm going to put us on the spot.
Bob Brackett. I don't know. I was trying to combine Bob and Brackett.
Welcome to our Bob Crit.
Bob, no, that's not it.
You know, the best time to do this is while we're recording.
We'll work on that for next week.
The episode when Dan needs to go to bed.
So next week we'll be highlighting some fantastic Bobs like Bob Barker,
mm-hmm.
Bob Denver, Bob Ross,
Kirk.
Bob Odenkirk. So stick around. Come back next week as we continue to debate through the best Bobs. As usual, we want to thank Aaron O'Donnell from Aaron O'Donnell Music for the track that you hear at the beginning and end of every episode. We also want to thank you all for listening, for putting us on in the background while you insert obscure chore here.
Gravy.
While you make brown gravy, while you take shots of brown gravy. Thank you for putting us on the background.
Bobcat.
Thanks for putting us on in the background. As always, it's super helpful. Like, share, subscribe, favorite, review, give us ratings and stars, and share this podcast with other people. Make them listen as well. Burn it to a CD and then lock them in your car and drive to Kansas while they listen. Whatever. We appreciate it. I don't know. It's all helpful.
Last time you burned a CD?
2010-ish. I don't know. It's been a while. But again, any way to get the podcast shared, I'll take it. I think that does it for us, right? Is that everything?
Yeah, I think the only other thing, because I'm inspired, is a couple months away, but make sure you vote.
Oh, yeah. The time is now. Go to vote.org, get registered. And a couple months, in 90, was it 8?
99
days. 99 days, make your voice heard. All right, that's our PSA. As usual, I've been Scott.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Dan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.